There is a popular saying in leadership that if you think you're leading and there's nobody following you, you are only going on a walk. On this platform, you are going to learn principles of leadership. You are going to encounter different leaders. You are going to learn about how you can grow as a leader, how you can make an impact. My name is Samuel Eyim, and I'm the host for the leadership platform. I am a leadership coach, a lawyer by profession, a John C. Maxwell certified coach. I have been in corporate life in senior positions for several years, and now I run the Center for Transformational Leadership, where we train and coach leaders to become better leaders. And I invite you to go on a journey with us as we discuss the subject of leadership in the coming weeks.
This and every Saturday, you have opportunity to ask questions, share your views on important leadership matters.
Hello everyone, my name is Elsie and I'm excited that I just completed a 15-week journey with the CTL Africa team on the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth by John C. Maxwell.
From the law of pain, I also learned that every problem introduces a person to himself. Honestly, till you face a problem, you wouldn't know the things that you actually have within you.
The journey for me personally was a wake-up call. Before I joined this journey, I wasn't actually learning at all. I wasn't adding any logic to what I knew.
So the law of trade-off is saying that you have to give up to grow up. So things that I think are not going to have maximum impact on my life, I have to trade them off.
I want to grow. I am not stopping now. I am continuing. And as far as I'm concerned, like it says, you cannot give what you don't have. I definitely will have to give what I have learned off to others and then get more so that I can continue giving. I am not going to be a reservoir. I am going to be a river, and therefore I'm going to continue learning to be able to give of my best.
Ordinary people can achieve extraordinary results on a consistent basis if they have a system, if they have a plan.
Wherever you are joining us, this is the leadership platform from CTL Africa. Every Saturday, we come your way with a new leadership lesson, and we are happy you are here with us. So if you're joining us, let us know where you are joining us from. I'm joining you from Geneva, Switzerland, and I can see already Falatu Abdul Mumin saying good evening. Miss Abe says good evening and happy to be here with us. And Douglas Amwatin, who is always one of the first people to join us, is here from Tema. And William Dafoe from Tema as well. Ebenezer from Abuja is also here with us. And we say welcome to all of you and looking forward to the others who will be brave enough this evening to put their names and their locations in the chat box. My name is Sarah Apia, and I'll be your host today for the leadership platform. So today we're going to listen to a very interesting topic that is leading from your sweet spot. And to do this, we have a very capable and able person who is going to share his lessons with us. And I will ask the host, our normal host, Mr. Samuel Eim, to come and take over and introduce our special guest to us today. Mr. Eim, if you're ready, please join us. There we go.
Thank you, Sarah, and I'm ready. I'm ready and happy to have my brother, my friend, uh, and my buddy Fred, who is coming onto the leadership platform. I think for the second or third time, and we know he will be coming all the time. For those of you in Ghana, you know Fred Asare is well known to most of us. Fred's special quality is a person who identifies with people who are disadvantaged. And from very early in his life, Fred identified the deaf and asked himself, why is it that we cannot preach the gospel to these people? So he learned sign language and started and created the biggest deaf ministry in Ghana, where he brought so many deaf people to Christ and set up a deaf church. And Fred's work in the deaf or sign language helped to introduce sign language into international TV and many, many others. In fact, the person who interprets when the president is making his speeches on coronavirus on our TV, the lady who interprets is one of the products of Fred Asare. So many people that he trained in sign language so they can communicate with people with disability in hearing, as we know them. Again, Fred, when he had finished his business administration in finance and banking, got several offers from different banks, but Fred decided that that is not where he wants his life to be. He wants to work with orphans. And I'm sure for most of you who may know, this cost him something very, very, very important in his life. I mean, not many people want to see somebody who is gone to university, study finance and banking, and he says, I want to work in an orphanage. But Fred took an orphanage which had only 3 children and has grown this orphanage to become a kind of, a multinational orphanage. It has schools, hospitals, orphanages, clinics, and his work in the orphanage didn't end there. Fred continued and worked with street children and brought children from the streets, fed them, ministered to them, and set up the Hope Tech Training Institute, where people on the street are brought onto the street, onto the training institute, and trained in leather, in mechanics, in catering, in so many things. And this is something he's trained taking so many young men and women from the streets. Fred is a product of the University of Ghana, where, as I said, he studied business administration in banking and finance. He's a product of the National Bible Institute. He's a minister also of the gospel. He's also a product of Abilene Christian University, where he has his master's and working on his doctorate in ministry and theology. Fred is also a John C. Maxwell certified coach. Now, if I want to go through the things that Fred has done with his life, with the deaf, with orphans, with people on the streets, I think I'll take all his time. But I think this sets us the foundation for what the subject of leadership that we're going to talk about today. Leading from your sweet spot is so critical because so many of us sometimes are doing things that we are not happy with. I've seen people who are working in the bank. I work in the bank and in the financial service sector for 24, 25 years. And I had colleagues who are earning good money in the bank, but we're not happy. They're not happy. They are stressing themselves. Going to work is difficult. And therefore, they could not make significant impact. And that is a big problem. And we want this evening, Fred, looking at what he has done, just leveraging on where his strengths are and using them to improve lives and influence the world, to share with us on how, as leaders, we can identify areas where we can make better impact, focus on those areas, and be able to improve our leadership. So on that note, I'm happy to welcome my brother and my friend. And by the way, because of all this good work that Fred has done, just recently, the University of Professional Studies actually awarded him an honorary degree for his good leadership and improving the lives, honorary doctorate degree in improving the lives of many people and good governance. On that note, I want to invite my brother and friend, Dr. Fred Asare, to share with us how we can build on our strengths to lead the world. Thank you, Fred. You are welcome.
Appreciate all that. Thank you for inviting me for the third time to come onto the leadership platform and to share some thoughts with you. I would say that this is more of a hypothesis, but I believe maybe one day it will become a thesis. We are talking about leading from your sweet spot, leading from your sweet spot. And good, I think I want to share my screen. I believe it's already being shared. So my duty will be to move forward as we go along. So the topic is leading from your sweet spot. And the whole presentation is in three parts. And so I say a thesis in three parts. But sometimes I'm hesitant to say it's a thesis. I think that leadership experts like John C. Maxwell can call something a thesis or a law. I would say this is a hypothesis because I'm a student of leadership. I'm not an expert, nowhere near being an expert. And so, but the whole presentation is in three parts. The first theory, the first thesis, the first of the three is that everyone is gifted, but we are gifted differently. Everyone is gifted, but we are gifted differently. Then secondly, there is an area or there are areas where each person functions best or produces the best possible results. There are areas in each person's life, in each person's workplace, in each person's relationship, where the person does his or her best, where the person is at his or her optimum. And that's the person's area of maximum strength. A person may have lots of strength, but there is an area or there's a few areas where these are the person's maximum strength areas. And that is where the person is most effective. And my hypothesis or my thesis is this, that is the person's sweet spot. And if a person would focus on that, a person will fulfill his or her destiny or achieve the most, be the very best of himself or herself, be the greatest he can be or the greatest she can be, if this person focuses on that area of strength, on that sweet spot. And so at the end of it all, the encouragement is for each one of us to do three things. Number one, discover your sweet spot. Number two, develop your sweet spot. And number three, deploy your resources to your sweet spot. That is all I hope to accomplish tonight. You may disagree, and that is fine, because as far as I'm concerned, it is debatable. But I'm talking about three things. Everyone is gifted, but we are gifted differently. And there is an area or a few areas that each person functions the best. Now, if a person will fulfill his or her destiny and become the greatest he or she can be, that person needs to discover, develop, and deploy in the area where the person has his or her greatest strength. So that is what we want to talk about. And so we'll begin with everyone is gifted. Jesus is a religious leader. Millions, maybe more than 1 billion Christians follow him. He lived over 2,000 years ago, and he's still very impactful in our current world. And when he lived, he told a parable, a story about 3 servants whose master was traveling and called each of them and gave them gifts. In the story, Jesus called them talents. And then the master traveled. After a long time, the master came and asked them to render account. 2 of them had doubled what they had received, and 1 failed to do anything meaningful and was punished as a result of that. This story is commonly called the parable of the talents. But what is instructive in this story that Jesus tells is the fact that each of the servants received something. He did not give them the same, but he gave everybody something. And in that story, Jesus says, according to their abilities. So they were given talents, they were given resources according to their abilities. But everybody received something. So everybody has a talent. Everybody has a gift from God. Everybody has an ability. Everyone is gifted. And that is what we must understand. As in the invitation to this program, of this particular lesson, there was a quote from Benjamin Carson. And he says, I think one of the keys to leadership is recognizing that everybody has gifts and talents. A good leader will learn how to harness these gifts towards the same goal. So that's what Benjamin Carson is saying, and it goes with what Jesus said, that everybody is given a gift. Everybody is given a talent. There's a story of a family that had a disabled child. The child could not talk and could not do much. And so the family just kept the child and did the best they could in feeding and clothing, taking care of the physical needs of the child. Now, there were other siblings. He had other siblings who were not disabled. They were what we would call normal children. And the family invited a music teacher to come to their home to teach the other children how to play the piano. They had a piano at home. And so the teacher would come and be teaching the children. And then at the free time, this this teacher would play some tunes. Well, one day, whilst he was teaching the other siblings, Daddy came home from work, and so everybody ran to welcome Daddy. So they left the piano, and then the teacher gave them a break. Well, whilst they were taking some snacks in the dining area, this disabled child was left alone with the piano. And all of a sudden, they heard some sweet music coming from the piano. And everybody was shocked. Everybody was stunned because nobody was in there except this disabled child. And to their surprise, he played exactly note for note what the teacher had been playing, without being part of the lessons. Just by hearing Somehow this child could sit on the piano and play, and from that time on, they trained the child to be a great piano player. This is to say that everyone is gifted. Even the one that the family thought was disabled, had no gifts, had no abilities. To their surprise, he could hear and play back what he had heard. Whereas the other siblings who were termed normal, they had to struggle to learn to play the piano well. And so that tells us that everyone is gifted. And perhaps almost all of us, I hope, each one has heard the story of Helen Keller. Helen Keller was born normal, but at the age of 18 months, developed a sickness, and then later on, because of the sickness, he became blind. As she became blind, she became deaf and mute, couldn't speak. And she started behaving like an animal. When she needed something, she would, cry and, throw the body about and roll, and was really behaving like an animal. And the parents got fed up with him, and so the parents took him to a blind school, Perkins Institute for the Blind in Boston, because they were fed up with this animal-like child they had, and they heard there was a blind school. They took her there. But the blind school had people who could speak and who could hear. They never had someone who was deaf, blind, and mute. And so they didn't know what to do with this child who had been brought to them. Well, there was this young lady called Anne Sullivan. And Anne Sullivan had also been sent to that school from what they called a poor home or a poor house. Basically, it was like an orphanage in those days. And she was sent there because she had developed some eye problems, and the doctors thought she was going to be blind. And so, because they thought she was going to be blind, they recommended that she should be sent to a school for the blind so she can learn to use the braille and behave like a blind person before she becomes blind. So that is why they sent her there. She wasn't blind yet, but she was going to be blind. And so she went to the school. Well, she never became blind. And when Helen Keller was brought to the Perkins Institute for the Blind, and they didn't know what to do with her, Anne Sullivan volunteered that she would help Helen Keller. And she helped her so well that Keller began to realize her gifts and her abilities. And that was a complete turnaround. By the age of 20, Helen Keller entered Radcliffe College, University. And she entered at a time when she could read and write and speak, even though she was blind and deaf. And so she went to school as if she was a normal student. And she graduated with honors. Helen Keller magazine articles from her own typewriter. She enjoyed music by placing her hands on the speakers or whatever was playing. If someone was playing the violin, she would put her hands on the violin and she could enjoy the music coming out of the violin. She could place her fingers on people's lips and could lip read or read their lips just by placing her fingers slightly on their lips. She could understand everything they were saying. This was a person who was deaf, blind, and mute, but she could speak. She learned to speak, and she learned to understand people. This is to show that everyone is gifted. In fact, Helen Keller wrote about 7 books. She traveled the world, going to universities, giving lectures, and she became world famous. And so let's understand this. Everyone is gifted, even though we are gifted differently. But every one of us is gifted. So what we need to understand is that we have different gifts, abilities, and skills. We have different gifts, abilities, and skills. So don't discount anyone, and certainly don't discount yourself, because you are gifted and you have unique skills and abilities. Another thing we need to understand is that no one can do everything. No one can do everything. Every human being has limitations. Every human being has limitations. So no human being has all gifts, abilities, and skills. Let's understand that. You may be gifted, but you don't have it all. No human being has all gifts, abilities, and skills. No one can do all things equally well or at the same level of competence. You may be able to do very well in something, but when it comes to other things, you may not do so well. And so once we understand this, then we understand that everyone has an area or has a few areas where he or she performs the best. But no one performs the best in all areas of life. We need to understand that. No one can do all things equally well or at the same level of competence. We also have to understand then that no one is perfect. No one is made up of all pluses and no minuses. No one has all strengths and no weaknesses. Every human being has strengths and every human being has weaknesses. In Greek mythology, we learn about Achilles, and you've heard about Achilles' heels. Now, Achilles was the greatest warrior among the Greeks. When they went to fight their enemies, he was the greatest warrior at Troy, and he was the slayer of Hector. Well, what the Greeks said about him was that when he was a child, when he was a baby, he was put in a certain concoction, a certain mixture that made him so strong that nobody could touch any part of his body. But here was the problem. When the priest or whoever put him in this concoction held Achilles, the priest held him by the feet and then dipped him into whatever was meant to give him so much power with his head down. And so every part of Achilles went into this liquid or this concoction, except the part of the heel that the person was holding, because Achilles was a baby. So when he was dipped in there, the part that the priest was holding, that liquid never touched that place, and that was his heel. And so Achilles was all powerful and all strong, and yet his weakness was in his heel. That never touched that magic portion, that powerful concoction. And that was his weakness. And so we have to understand, everybody has strengths, everybody has gifts, but no one is perfect. And each person has some minuses, some weaknesses. That is the reality of life. Well, the common mistake that people make is that many people focus on their weaknesses to the neglect of their strengths. You know, people think that, well, if I can eliminate my weaknesses, I'll be better. If I can convert my weaknesses into strengths, I'll be a better leader, a better person. And so they focus on how to improve on their weaknesses, often to the neglect of their strengths. And that is a very common mistake. People wanting to eliminate their weaknesses by focusing on the weaknesses, by improving their areas of weaknesses. And while they do that and they are focused on their weaknesses, they neglect or forget about their strength. Another common misconception is that some leaders think that if they focus on their weaknesses, to eliminate these weaknesses, they will become better leaders. And some think that if they can focus on the weaknesses of those they lead and help them to eliminate their weaknesses, then they will be better followers. Some followers also ignore the strengths of their leaders and rather focus on the weaknesses of their leaders. When we do that, we ignore a significant part of the people we are dealing with, whether it's ourselves or with others, because we are focusing more on people's weaknesses, more on what they cannot do well, and that focus sometimes makes us neglect their areas of strength. And so it is important that we are mindful of that. Another common mistake that people do is that many people don't work on their strengths. Why? Well, they think that their strengths come to them naturally. No, I'm gifted. I'm naturally good at this. It comes to me. I don't have to practice. I don't have to learn. I don't have to rehearse. I don't have to develop it. It's a gift that I've received. So many people make the mistake of not working on their strengths because it comes to them naturally. The strengths come to them effortlessly. They don't need to put in any effort, and yet they are strong. And so they think that, oh, if I don't do anything, I'll still excel. And as such, people often neglect to grow their strengths. Rather, they focus on their areas of weakness, hoping to improve upon that, and neglect their strength, thinking that it comes to them naturally and they will do well in that area. Well, the truth is that if you don't work on your strengths, at best, you may be good, but you can never excel. If you don't work on your strengths, you may be good. It may come to you naturally, but you will never excel. No matter how hard you work on your weaknesses, you cannot excel in the areas of your weaknesses. Now, I didn't say you cannot improve upon them. You can improve upon them, but you cannot excel. Take on a scale of 0 to 10. If you are so weak in an area, it's an area of weakness, natural weakness, and say you are at a level 2, and you focus all your attention on that area, you may improve from level 2 to level 5 out of 10. That will put you at average or just below average. But you will never move from level 2 to a level 8 because it's an area of your weakness. And no matter how many resources you put in there, you can only become average. On the other hand, if you focus on your strengths, you could excel. So that if you are naturally good, without putting in any effort, you are at a level 5. If you were to put in some effort, you could move to level 10. And you could be the best in that area. That's what we have to understand. You can improve upon your weaknesses, no doubt. But you cannot excel. You cannot be the best in that area. It's not your area of natural gifting. Whereas, if you identify your area of natural gifts and strengths and abilities and skills, you can be the very best in that area. That is what we need to understand. That is what we need to take note of. And let's note that people pay you for your strength, not your weaknesses. I don't know any employer who employs people and say, I'm going to pay you for your weaknesses. You go through the interview process, the selection process, and you are appointed because of your strengths. So why then do we neglect our strengths when people actually pay us because of our strengths? People appreciate you for your positives, not your negatives. So why do you neglect your positives and focus on your negatives most of the time? When people say they appreciate you, it's not because of your weaknesses. They may hate you, abhor you because of your weaknesses, but people appreciate you because of your strength or your positives, not your negatives. And great leaders are known for their strengths and for the areas where they excel. Great leaders are not known for their weak areas. We admire great leaders because of their areas of strength. Then it stands to reason that if that is the case, we should be focusing more on our areas of strength. We should be focusing more on areas where we excel. Let's just take some examples of very well-known people. Take Usain Bolt, great athlete, track and field athlete. I put there that he is a runner. Now imagine Usain Bolt focusing on his football skills. You know, when Usain Bolt retired from running from the athletic field, he decided to go and play football, what people call soccer. And currently, I believe he's playing for a team in the United States. But he's just an average player. And no matter how well he trains, Usain Bolt can never be a world-class footballer or soccer player. But his area of strength was in running. The 100 meters, the 200 meters, and he excelled there. So imagine that Usain Bolt would have said, well, I'm a natural runner, and so let me focus on my footballing skills. The world will have lost a great athlete, and some world records would not have been set. Think of David Beckham. David Beckham is a footballer. He played for many clubs in Europe and also in the United States, but more importantly, he played for the English national team, national football team. He is known for spot kicks, like penalties and free kicks. You know, when the ball is there, he can play from any angle and score. And that was what he was known for. And it was said that when the English national team went for training sessions, Beckham spent most of his time practicing spot kicks. You will not know David Beckham as a dribbler. There are the Maradonas and there are the other players who are known to be dribblers. There is Messi, who sometimes when he's playing, it's as if the ball has been glued to his feet. He will be looking somewhere else, not looking at the ball, and wherever he goes, the ball follows him there. He's a natural dribbler, but not David Beckham. But Beckham is known worldwide because he focused on his area of strength, where he performed best. Let's talk about evangelist Billy Graham. He's known all over the world. Everywhere, people know Billy Graham. Think of Billy Graham pastoring a local church. Not that he cannot pastor a local church. He was a trained pastor in the terms that is used, okay? He was a trained minister. And he could have pastored any local church. But Billy Graham's area of strength was in being an evangelist. He will go to a country and there will be hundreds of thousands of people filling a football stadium or an arena somewhere. I think the greatest crowd he spoke to was over 1 million in South Korea. And he traveled the whole world holding these huge crusades as an evangelist. Now compare Billy Graham, an evangelist, with Billy Graham, a local church pastor, pastoring a church of maybe 200 people. You realize that he would have missed out on his area of strength, his sweet spots. Think of Michael Jordan. Some believe he's an all-time best basketball player. That's debatable. But the fact is that everybody agrees that Michael Jordan is one of the best people who ever played basketball. Supposing Michael Jordan, sort of focusing on basketball, decided, well, I want to improve upon baseball. So he has a bat and he's practicing baseball. The world will have lost a great record-setting basketball player. Or think of Michael Jackson. We know Michael Jackson and his songs and his dancing and his skills. And he acted a few times. You know, some of his musicals, like the Thriller musical, you know, it was like a film. He was acting in it. But Michael Jackson will be an average, maybe even below average actor. But when Michael Jackson is a musician, when Michael Jackson sings and dances, he's a different human being. He's like a superhuman being. Why? Because he had this area of strength. So great leaders and achievers focus on developing their strengths, not their weaknesses. And of course, Denzel Washington, great actor, right? Oscar-winning actor. Think about Denzel Washington as a musician. I'm sure he can sing. You know, he can carry a tune. But what a great actor the world would have lost if Denzel Washington focused on his singing skills rather than on his acting skills. So the point of all this and all these examples is that You will achieve your greatest when you focus on your areas of strength, not on your areas of weakness. And so that is what we call your sweet spot. Your sweet spot is your area of strength. You see, a sweet spot technically is an area of a bat or a club or a racket that hits the ball at the most effective point. So supposing you are playing lawn tennis, there is a spot on the racket that when it hits the ball is most effective. It gets to where you want it to get to. If you're playing table tennis, you have a bat, but it's not everywhere that when the ball hits, you get the effect you want. But when it hits the right spot, what we call the sweet spot, that is when it is most effective. It's an area of a bat or a club or a racket which hits the ball in the most effective way. That is the sweet spot. So when we are talking about sweet spot, we are talking about what makes you effective. What are the characteristics or the combination of characteristics that produces the best you? That's what we're talking about. Your sweet spot is an optimal point or combination of factors or qualities where you are at your best. Okay? That is your sweet spot. And so that is what we want to talk about. When we talk about your sweet spot, we are saying that there is an area or there are areas where you function best. That is your area of strength where you are most effective. Your sweet spot is the area of strength where you are most effective. And if you can identify and develop and deploy that area, you will be the best you can be. The best leader or the best in whatever endeavor you do. That is the basic theory I'm working with tonight, and I'm encouraging you to focus on tonight. Your sweet spot, the area where you are most effective, the area where you perform so well. Now, instead of just saying, well, I'm so good at that, I'm naturally good, as though you neglect it, I'm encouraging you to do three things. Discover that area, develop that area, and deploy your resources in that area. And that will make you the best leader you can be. And that will make you the best human being you can be. Let's focus a little on these three. Discover your sweet spots. You can only do that if you know yourself. Someone has said, man or woman, know yourself. You see, at any point in time, you can do so many things. And you can do so many things fairly well. But if you don't take the time, you will not recognize what you can do the best. So you need to know yourself. The fact that you can play football and play basketball and play hockey and run and throw the javelin and jump, the high jump or, long jump, doesn't mean that all those are your sweet spots. You need to know where or which area you perform the best. And that calls for engaging in self-reflection. What I would say, that be brutally honest with yourself. You may be good at A or B or C, but be brutally honest with yourself. What can you do the best? It will help if you took time to do or take a personality test. Unfortunately, many of us don't want to do tests until we are in a crisis. With medical examination, we advise every now and then, just go and see your doctor, general practitioner, and just do the general test. Many of us don't. We don't until we. But the best way to maintain your health is to be checking regularly. And the same applies here. Many people refuse to test to know their areas of strength. But my friend, if you were to spend some money to test and to know, discover your area of strength, you will do yourself a great favor. Because you may be wasting your life in an area where you have no strength. And you will never discover your true strength until it's too late. I will encourage you to consider taking a personality test to know yourself. I know that CTL Africa can help you. There is a test called the DISC, D-I-S-C, and the I is a little I for a reason. It's actually a trademark. Okay, D, capital D, small i's, capital S, and capital C. The DISC. And I know that the CEO of the leadership platform, or the CEO of CTL Africa, is really certified, is good in that. And there are several personality tests that CTL Africa can help you do. Spend some money and get to know yourself. Because if you don't, you will be running around and doing things that you think you are good at without discovering your real sweet spot. It's important that instead of wasting your life, you spend some money to really research into yourself to know what are my areas of strength and to discover that, because that will help you. That will change the trajectory of your life. That will change the direction of your life when you come to really discover who you are. It is important that you discover that. So ask yourself some questions. What interests you the most? What interests you the most? What do you love doing? What is it that you really love doing? What do you enjoy doing? And what do you do effortlessly? There are things you struggle with, but there are things you just do without any effort. What is it? Those questions can help you, if you reflect soberly, to identify your sweet spot. What are you good at? You may be good at many things, but what are you really, really good at? What makes you feel like you are in your elements? When you are there, you are good. You feel good. You feel okay. That may point you to your area of strength. I know who I am. I cannot distinguish between a gigabyte and a megabyte. I don't know really the difference. Whether I know one is bigger, computer order, the gigabyte and the megabyte. I don't know which one is bigger, but I know there's a terabyte somewhere, and perhaps the terabyte is bigger than all of them. But I really don't know. I'm not good at computers. Okay, I'm not good at IT. I buy myself some of the best laptops with all these softwares and programs, and I use about 2% of it. Word to type my reports, and then to do my email, and then PowerPoint on a few occasions. That's all. The rest of the computer is useless to me. So I won't force myself to become an IT specialist. I know that's not my area of strength. But invite me to a program unannounced. I get there, and then you say, our speaker didn't come, especially if it's a church. And you say, oh, can you preach a sermon for us? Give me 5 minutes notice. The Holy Spirit will descend and talk. And at the end, you wonder, was this message prepared beforehand? It wasn't prepared beforehand. That's my area of strength. That's my area that I operate best. And it will be best for me to develop that area than try to understand the workings of a computer beyond what I use it for, the few things I use it for. So it is important that you find your sweet spot, the area where you believe you are in your elements, you are naturally good, you enjoy doing that thing, and then to develop it. That will really help make a difference in your life. So the next thing is develop. John C. Maxwell says leadership is developed, not discovered. The truly born leader will always emerge, but to stay on top, natural leadership characteristics must be developed. It's not good enough to know you are good in an area. It's not good enough to know you are comfortable. You operate most effectively and most efficiently in a certain area. Having discovered that, you need to develop that. And I want us to take a look at the Pareto principle. It's a very interesting principle. And by the way, this is a law. This is really a theory that has been scientifically proven. 20% of your workers at the workplace will do 80% of the job. They will produce 80% of your production. If you are into sales, 20% of your salespeople will sell 80% of the products you sell. And the remaining 80% will sell 20% of your products. When you go to a party, 20% of the people at the party will eat 80% of the food. There is no data. It's been proven, scientifically proven, that 80% will just eat a bite here, a bite there, just a little. But 20% of those who attend the party, they'll eat 80% of the food. That is the Pareto principle, the 20-80 principle. And when we apply it in our discussion, 20% of your priorities will give you 80% of your production. If, and that's a big if, you spend your time, your energy, your money, and personnel on the top 20% of your priorities. Furthermore, the Pareto principle teaches us that 20% of your strengths will give you 80% of your success. Think about it. 20%, you have many strengths. You have many strengths. If I tell you to list, you may fill an A4 paper or a sheet of paper with all your strengths. But you know, the top 20% of those strengths will give you 80% of your success. If you spend your resources, your time, energy, money, etc., on the top 20% of your strengths. If you spend your resources on 80% of your areas of weakness, you will only improve your life by 20%. If you put all your money, all your time, all your relationships, you put everything into an area of weakness, and you say you want to develop that, you want to improve upon that, great, you do well. But poor you will only improve 20% of your life. Whereas, if you spend your resources on the top 20% of your areas of strength, you will improve your life by 80%. Think about it. If you put your resources, if you identify your top 20% strength, and you put your resources there, you will improve 80% of your life. So you choose. Where are you going to put your emphasis? Where are you going to put your money? Are you going to put it in your weakness, or you're going to put it in your areas of strength? I want to encourage you to identify your sweet spot. Identify your areas of effortless performance and focus on that. That would improve your life significantly. So, in developing your sweet spot, determine what abilities and skills are the top 20% of your strength. And spend 80% of your time on 20% of your strength. Spend 80% of development training on the top 20% of your strength. As a leader, discover the top 20% of your workforce and spend more money on them for better productivity. We are not saying neglect the rest, but we are saying that you have to focus. Focus on the top 20%. They are your top performers. Focus on training them well, and they will give you the greatest results you look out for. And even with those people, identify the top 20% of their strength and let them go train in that area. Don't send people for training. If you're an HR manager, don't send people for training just because they are weak in this area, weak in that area, so you keep pumping money there. They will improve, but you will not get the kind of results you want. On the other, if you identify their areas of strength and you train them in that area or in those areas, you would gain, and your organization will gain a great deal. So it's important that we look at this critically. In developing your sweet spot, determine what 20% of your abilities give you 80% of your returns. your achievements, your action. Focus on that 20% and then employ people to handle the 80% of your abilities. If you are good at something, focus on that. And then the 80% that gives you only 20% of your returns. Employ somebody to handle it. That is why top executives have executive assistants and people to assist them. They focus on their areas of strength. And then when it comes to managing and, you just hire people to fill those things and lead. That is where you get your best. Why waste your time writing letters and doing this and doing that when that is not your area of strength? Focus on your strength, employ people to do the rest. This will free you to do what you do best and what you love to do. Improve significantly. Don't try to do everything. You clutter your life and you're miserable. So let's focus on that. So John C. Maxwell says, it's not how hard you work, it's how smart you work. It's not how hard you work, it's how smart you work. If you are good in other areas, in certain areas, focus on that. And the areas you are not at, be smart, hire people, engage people to handle those. So you can focus on your areas of strength. It's not how hard you work, how smart you work. And you work smart when you focus on your sweet spot. And so read. Participate in training programs. Practice, work out your strengths. I'll try and summarize, but the last point, deploy. 3 questions to consider in determining how to deploy your sweet spot in using your strength is, what is required of me? Every leader must know what is required of me. Why, if you're a leader, why did the board appoint you? What are the expectations on you? If you're a president, why did the people vote for you? What is required of you as a person, as an employee? What you have to do that no one else can do? That is what you have to focus. What gives you the greatest return? This will give you returns. What gives you the greatest return? And what is reward to you? What do I do that I enjoy the most? These are what we call the 3 R's: requirement, return, and reward. That is where you must focus in deploying your strengths. In deploying your strengths, you have to consider first the 3 R's. Evaluate your requirement, what's required, and reward. And then, very interesting, eliminate what is not helpful to you. What am I doing that is not in my sweet spots? What am I doing that is not in my area of strength that I can find someone else to do, that someone else can do better? Eliminate. If you want to really be an effective leader, learn to eliminate. Learn to eliminate that which will not help you the most. If you don't do that and you clutter your life, try to do everything, you will not be as effective as you should be. So evaluate what's required, what's your return, and what gives you the greatest reward, and then eliminate what doesn't help that much. Then you must estimate, what are the top things I'm currently doing and how long will it take to complete? You see, the tendency is that when you're doing something you love, you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and you never grow. You never get out of it. It becomes like a cycle because you enjoy doing it. And so you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. But what you need to do is estimate when you have to end it. And then move on. Finish it and move on. Otherwise, you will waste time doing the things, some things simply because you enjoy doing them. And so there should be a timeline, even for the things you love to do, and there should be a deadline for you, so you don't waste your time on that. So to conclude, I encourage you to focus. I encourage you to focus. Focus on what is most important in your area of strength and deliberately neglect other things. John C. Maxwell calls it planned neglect. Deliberately neglect it. You can't do everything. So deliberately neglect it so you can focus on what is most important. William James says, the art of being wise is the art of knowing what to overlook. The art of being wise is the art of knowing what to overlook. Some weaknesses will destroy you. We are not saying don't work on your weaknesses. You need to get out of those. What is being emphasized is don't spend all your time there. We're not talking about those things that are destructive. Okay, those habits that are destructive. That's not what we are talking about. But those things that you want to do, but you are weak in, those are the things you must learn to neglect. Not completely, but don't focus too much on it, and focus rather on your areas of strength. That would help you. Machona Dewayo says, stir the world with your skills, shake the world with your talents, move the world with your brilliance, and change the world with your genius. You can only do that when you are operating from your sweet spot. You cannot do that from any other spot. You can stir the world, you can shake the world, you can move the world, you can change the world when you are operating from your sweet spot. And as is with me, I will end with some helpful tips from John C. Maxwell. He says, work where you are strong, you are the strongest 80% of the time. Work where you are the strongest 80% of the time. Work where you are learning 15% of the time. And work where you are weak 5% of the time. And you know, the man who said this is a leadership guru. You would help yourself if you take heed to his advice. Let us work from our sweet spot. Let us lead from our sweet spot. And we would be the greatest, we will be the best, and we'll make the world, our organizations, our families, our relationships, the best that these can be. Thank you. And I'm open for discussion. As I said, you can disagree with me. I'm no leadership expert. I'm a student of leadership. So let's discuss and let's all learn together. Thank you for this privilege. Thank you very much.
Navigating through life without a coach or a guide can be very deceiving, making you come to think that you have achieved the highest or the best you can ever, or you have made the best of decisions. But until you become very intentional and take a good stock of your life, you would not realize that it's a mistake.
Pain helps you to come out of your comfort zone.
The law of intentionality and the fact that learning is a lifelong journey if you want to be significant. Emphasis on significance.
Previously, I used to be very unintentional about the things I do when it comes to my family, my work, my Christian life, and basically everything that I do.
In the pursuit of that growth, there are gaps. There are gaps that we need to conquer. These gaps include the knowledge, perfection, mistake, inspirational, timing, and assumption gap.
And I will encourage you to be part of CTL Africa's 15-week growth journey.
I encourage you all out there who need to live their life to be part of CTL Africa's growth journey.
Please take advantage of this program and your life will never be the same.
Thank you very much, CTL Africa, and continue to impact the world. God bless.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you so very much for these great insights. I've learned so many things. I was writing my notes and a few points I took, and I encourage you, please go ahead and share your takeaways from the in the comment box. Also share your questions, and Fred will come back and and comment on them or answer your questions. So my takeaways, plenty of them. Everyone has a gift. So we all have a gift. No one can do all things equally well. So that is a very, very important insight I pick. It says, lead your people from their strengths. A lot of the time we are focusing too much on the weaknesses of the people. He says, focus on the strength of your people. And here I remember one of my CEOs used to tell us that, look, if I was focusing on your weaknesses, I would have fired all of you. But for each of you, I look for where you are strong, and I just use that, and I ignore all your other weaknesses. I overlook them. And so you don't come and tell me about the negatives of what somebody is. Well, no, I'm using the strengths. So very, very important, whether it's your boss, whether it's your subordinate, focusing on their strengths and using that will help. And it says, don't neglect to work on your strengths. Sometimes because you think you are good at something, you don't work on them anymore. He says if you want to excel, you have to be able to spend time and work on your weakness. And the time you spend on your weakness will give you greater results than spending the same time trying to improve on your weaknesses. Okay. I also learned that you are paid for your strengths. So remember that you are not paid for your weaknesses, you are paid for your strengths. And he encourages us to do a personality test, and we encourage you, just give us a shout. We will give you a simple test. We'll give you a full, I think, 32-page, or is it a 100-page report? Abigail will confirm. Full report on your personality, your strengths, and how you can work with your strength in your work environment, in your personal relationships, and so forth. We are certified to do the disc, so go ahead. I also learned the 3Ds: discover, develop, and deploy your strengths. And I learned the 3Es to optimize your strength is to evaluate, to eliminate, and to estimate. He has explained them, so I'm not going to go them. But what I like about is the planned neglect. There are some things that you should deliberately avoid to do. All right. And the last one, use the 80-20 rule. There are so many things that I believe you can learn. So I want you all to share your takeaways with us whilst we go to check up on your questions. And whilst we are on it, we encourage you. The growth journey is running. We are running through 2 cohorts at the same time. We've done the first 2 weeks, but you can still join. We will do a bridge over for the first 2 weeks for you because we have 30 more weeks to go. And so many people joined this time around, so we had to split the group into 2. But on the second group, we still have some room. So please go ahead. You can ask William Darfur. He will tell you he's on the program and he's enjoying and learning and growing much faster. All right. So thank you very much, Fred. We appreciate you. William says, great to be here. Christopher Gavo is here from Koforidia. Thank you. Welcome, Elkana Balandia from Tanzania. We appreciate you because I live in Tanzania and I know that it is this hour, it's 11 p.m. and you have stayed up to join the platform. Thank you so much, Elkana Balandia from Tanzania. Dennis Ahe is here. Thank you so much. Charlotte Asiedu is here. Good evening, everyone. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining. Adolfo is here, and Commander is here. Dinam Zoiku, thank you so much. This is good stuff. He says the principles of positive psychology. Thank you so much. Akwesi Kankam says more often than not, we are told to turn our weaknesses into strength, but I never know that we can inadvertently neglect our strength. Thank you, sir. All right. Rose Odai is here. It's great to join. And Kwesi Kankam says his question. Fred, please note this question. This is our first question here. Isn't it better to work or improve on your strengths rather than focusing to improve on your weaknesses? I believe that's what Fred said. After all, our weaknesses are deficiencies. Oh, okay. He comes back to, I think what he wants to ask is, isn't it better to work or improve on our weaknesses because they are the deficiencies? Isn't it better to work to improve on them rather than on our strength? After all, our strength is always there. All right. So I think the two sides of the point. Improve your weaknesses because they are your deficiencies. Your strength is always there. Why are you wasting your time? Commander Zonam says, working on your weaknesses is to improve from negative 10 to 0. I like that. So when you say you're going to work on your negatives, you're starting already from negative 10 and you're going to move from there to 0. Does not get you noticed. This will not get you noticed as a best performer, but you can improve on your strength from 0 to 10 and become a star performer. I like that illustration. So I think Commander has answered Akwesi's question. Jerry is here. Great insight. Ebenezer Tufo, my headmaster, thank you very much. Insightful and motivational. Charlie Nete is here. I'm glad to join. Akwesi says, Dr. Fred, thank you for this eye-opener. I must confess that I have always been focusing on my weakness and has been neglecting my strength. Thank you ever so much. Amazing insight. Thank you so much, Akwesi, for that. All right. So, okay, Fred, I don't see any more questions, but let's see. Consta Natura is here. Plan neglect, great advice. Martin says, wow, the plan neglect, I have learned it today and I will practice this. Thank you so much. All right. Consta, focus on your strength. Those are some of the takeaways. Emmanuel says, following from Wa, thank you all the way from Wa. And upon Yao, Issa Gilbert says, my question is, how do you deploy your strengths in an environment where everyone seems to focus and see much of your weakness? All right. So that is Gilbert from Gomoa Fete. All right. So Fred, there are a couple of questions there for you. So please help us with your comments and let's see what you say. Isn't it better to improve of your weaknesses because they are the ones affecting you instead of improving on your strength? Isn't it better? And the question of how do we deploy your strength in an environment where everybody is focusing on weaknesses? Is Fred still there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me answer Kwesi's question. Conventional wisdom teaches us that focus on your weaknesses, improve upon that. That's where you are weak. But what I'm saying is that we've learned from leadership that it is better to focus on your area of strength. Now, I believe Akwesi is a Ghanaian, and I believe he loves soccer or football. Think about Ghana's best goal scorer, who just retired recently from the national team, Asamoah Gyan. Very poor defender. Now, if Asamoah Gyan were to focus his training and emphasis on defending, stopping other teams from scoring us, rather than focusing on scoring goals, he wouldn't have been Ghana's top goal scorer in our national history in terms of football. He wouldn't have been the top African footballer to score the most goals in the World Cup if he had focused on and say that even John Maxwell is teaching us. We are not saying don't do anything at all about your weaknesses. Weaknesses that will destroy you. That you must work on and eliminate those things because they will destroy your life. But that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about weaknesses that don't destroy your life and you want to improve upon it. How you focus so much on it and it will not get you anywhere. And so spend only 5% of your resources on that weakness. Still do something about it, but 5% is enough. Put 80% on where you can perform the best. Think about it as I use the football, soccer, Asamoah Gyan scoring goals illustration. Okay. There was once a Brazilian team, football team, that won the World Cup. And they had such poor defensive players. And so teams always called them. But their coach said, we would always outscore the teams we play with. So you can score us 2 goals, we'll score you 6. You can score us 4 goals because our defenses are weak. We will score you 10. It's not that they never worked on the defenses. They will still put defenders there. But their strength was in scoring goals. And so no matter how many goals you score them, they will outscore you and they won the World Cup. So please, 5% is good enough. Put 15% on areas you can learn and improve, but focus 80% of your resources on your areas of strength. And the second question is, how do you deploy your strengths in an environment where everyone seems to focus on your weakness? If everyone is focusing on your weakness, don't make that same mistake by focusing on your weakness. You focus on your strength, because at the end of the day, you'll be judged most of all for your strengths. In his book, Developing the Leader Within You, John Maxwell tells the story of a salesman who was very bad in writing English, okay? Very poor English. He couldn't write, he couldn't spell well. And he went to a city and sent a report back to headquarters. I sold our product to some company never buy from us before. Very badly written reports. The English was bad, the spelling was bad, the grammar was bad. But he had given a report that he had sold their products to an organization that had never bought from them. Then he said, I am going to Chicago. He spelled Chicago, Chicago. Then his supervisor received the report and was terrified. How can a salesman write such horrible reports? And he was wondering what to do with this salesman. In a couple of days, he sent another letter, the report. Now in Chicago, sold $500,000 to them people who don't buy from us. Very badly written report. But he has sold $500,000 of goods and had written a terrible report. So the supervisor thought, no, this salesperson must be fired. I mean, how can you write such poor reports? So he sent the problem to the president or the CEO of the organization and said, look, we can't have such a guy on our team writing such horrible reports. The next day, on the organization's notice board, the CEO or president of the organization posted the 2 reports from this salesman And then he wrote his own assessment. And the CEO wrote in horrible English to the point that them salespeople in office ought to be on the street or on the road selling. And the spelling of selling was wrong. Selling like this, and it was DIS. This salesman, instead of writing good English in your reports. What? And everybody was shocked, but the message went because they knew the CEO could write good English. But he wrote a bad English to let them understand that we as an organization, we are interested in sales. If the man is writing a bad report and he's bringing 500,000 of sales in a single day, who cares about his bad report? About his bad grammar? Okay, who cares about his bad spelling? So this is the point. Focus on your area of strength. Let the people focus on your weakness. But at the end of the day, if you work in an environment and you are outperforming people in your area of strength, you will get noticed. But if you also follow them and start focusing on your areas of weakness, you'll be lost in the system. Be the best in your sweet spot, and others will soon take notice. So don't make the mistake of losing track and going to follow others because they are being negative. Work on your areas of weakness. If you need to work on them, work on them. But instead of putting 80% of your resources trying to please the other people so they no longer say negative things about you, rather put that 80% of your resources, strength, and energy and time into improving and be the best in your area, and you'll be noticed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those answers. We are getting close to the top of the hour. Ebenezer says, watch, like, subscribe, and share the video of Professor Harvard sharing some amazing thoughts about HCC management. All right, so thank you very much, Ebenezer, encouraging us to go to HCC, fantastic university. George Panailo Basil from UK, thank you very much. Theodora says, great presentation. All right, so those are the comments. I believe that the message is very clear. We're not saying that neglect your weaknesses and don't pay attention to them, but just spend just enough time to work on them. If you work on your strengths and you use your strength, you are going to excel. And when you excel, like this salesman Fred just told us about, when you excel selling, who cares about your bad English spellings? Okay? So please, let's get the message. Thank you very much, Fred. I don't see any more questions. Kofi, maybe bring Sarah just in case Sarah has some questions or comment, and then we would.
Yes, there's a question for Portia that you missed.
Okay. Oh, okay. What did
she says? Would you advise? I said, would you advise we take up careers that provide our needs, as we hope to do what we enjoy when we are sufficient? Yeah. It has been highlighted. So maybe if Fred could take that up, that will be great.
Okay, Fred, will you advise we take up careers that provide our needs, as we hope to do what we enjoy when we are sufficient? If so, how do we then focus on 80% of our priorities or what we enjoy? All right, so Fred,
well, thank you. Great question, Portia. Thank you for such a great question, because especially in Africa, survival is it. You know, everybody wants to survive. And so if I can do something I don't enjoy doing, but it will make me survive, most Africans would go for that, because we are in the mood of surviving. But my advice is don't do it. Rather, do what you enjoy doing and excel in what you enjoy doing. And soon enough, people will take notice. Okay? At the beginning, people may not notice. But if you focus on what you enjoy, people will take notice and the rewards will be great. And you'll be able to meet your basic survival needs. So let's not make the mistake. I believe Mr. Samuel Ayim talked about working in a bank with so many people not happy. Look, life is short. Have some fun, okay? Life is really short. You don't want to live your whole life not happy. And then when will you get enough to move out? Because you see, when you focus on something you are not interested in, you are not happy about, you are just doing the job to survive, you will be mediocre, at best average. So you will not excel and the money will not flow. Money flows to excellence. Money flows to excellence. And so when you are mediocre, you will never get a raise, you never get a promotion. And then if you can become average, nobody notices average people. Nobody notices average people. There are millions of average footballers around. Who notices them? Okay? People notice excellence. And people pay for excellence. So you are thinking, oh, let me do this to survive. And you'll be doing it to survive. And before you realize, especially if you're from Ghana or other countries that have a retirement age, before you realize you are 5 years to retirement, you are 8 years away from retirement, and you realize you wasted your youth, you've wasted your strength. And now you want to do what you like, you don't have the strength to do it. You've wasted the time. But if you had focused on your area of strength, yes, you would have struggled for 5 years, true. But imagine if you had worked for 40 years, the remaining 35 years will be great. Rather than struggle through for 30 years and you go nowhere. So my advice is that do what you like best. As Mr. Ayim said, I'll not be the person to give any other advice because I did banking and finance from the University of Ghana. My group, my year mate, we were the third group in Ghana to have completed university with a bachelor's degree in banking and finance. And the banks were all over us. The banks wanted us. You couldn't get graduates with banking and finance degrees in those days. People would do other subjects and go to the banking college and learn on the job to get to where we were. But I realized that was not an area I was interested in. That was not my sweet spot. My sweet spot was helping people who were disadvantaged in society. So I started doing sign language. And before long, I got recognized. And people thought I was crazy. You know, why would you go and work with an orphanage? Some people were even doubting whether I really went to the University of Ghana, School of Administration. Because School of Administration in those days took the best students. The best science students went to medical school. And then the best art students went to School of Administration or the law faculty. And they were wondering, did this guy really graduate from the University of Ghana School of Administration and he's going to run an orphanage? But that was my passion. And I've never been hungry. And God has taken good care of me. Okay? But more importantly, lives have been transformed. Okay? And that's what matters the most. And I'm happy. I'm happy doing what I've done and what I'm doing. So I will never advise you to take something you don't like in the hope that you will make enough money and then move on. It may be too late for you. And as I said, life is too short, you know, to be going through life, not enjoying it and hating what you do. Enjoy what you do. Love what you do. You know, be in your sweet spot. That's why it's called the sweet spot. And the rewards would follow. Don't do things for reward. Do things for the value it provides to other people. Do things for what it provides to other people, the benefits it gives to society and to humanity. And the rewards will certainly, definitely follow. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think the rest of it are all commendations. So we want to thank God. Gisela says money flows to excellence. So that's to support Fred's point. be the best in your sweet spot. That's Consta. All right. And Consta likes the analogy with the football and the salesman. Great insights. Thank you so much. On this note, we want to thank all of you for coming this evening. And until next week, when we come your way with another great speaker, great teacher, and a great topic. This has been the Leadership Platform from the Center for Transformational Leadership. Have a good night, and let's go to church tomorrow to thank God for our lives. Good night, and God bless you. Thank you so much, Fred. Good night.
Hello everyone, my name is Elsie and I'm excited that I just completed a 15-week journey with the CTL Africa team on the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth by John C. Maxwell.
From the law of pain, I also learned that every problem introduces a person to himself. Honestly, till you face a problem, you wouldn't know the things that you actually have within you.
The journey for me personally was a wake-up call. Before I joined this journey, I wasn't actually learning at all. I wasn't adding any logic to what I knew.
So the law of trade-off is saying that you have to give up to grow up. So things that I think are not going to have maximum impact on my life, I have to trade them off.
I want to grow. I am not stopping now. I am continuing. And as far as I'm concerned, like it says, you cannot give what you don't have. I definitely will have to give what I have learned off to others and then get more so that I can continue giving. I am not going to be a reservoir. I am going to be a river, and therefore I'm going to continue learning to be able to give of my best.
Ordinary people can achieve extraordinary results on a consistent basis if they have a system, if they have a plan.